Hello and welcome to a special episode of Pep Talk where we're going to think about attacking the quality of written communication question in your exam and how you need to go about and what you need to think about to get the full 6 marks from this question. So now I'm ready to have a look at my 6-mark question, and they've given me some context here for what they're doing this question on this exam paper in the context of a boy making a mobile of birds in flight. And we can see we've just answered part A to question number 1 here. They asked me, firstly, in the first part of this question, what was meant by centre of mass. So already I know this whole question is going to be related to that bit of topic. So I've answered that one there. I've said, what is meant by centre of mass of an object? The point at which the mass of an object may be thought to be concentrated. So already I know that that's the area that I'm looking at in this question. But then I've got to part B of it, and I've thought, oh no, it's the 6-mark question. They've told me in this question, you will be assessed on using good English, organising information clearly, using specialist terms where appropriate. And what they're saying is describe how you would find the centre of mass of a mobile shape. And they're referring, of course, to this mobile shape of is whatever sort of bird that is up there, some sort of seabird. Okay, so they're asking me, how can I find the centre of mass of that asymmetric shape up there? Obviously, we know a symmetrical shape easy enough. It's where the lines of symmetry intersect. But for an asymmetric shape, how can I find it out? So firstly, I'm going to talk you through my thought process here, but I've actually got some stuff written down to show you as well. So the first thing I want to do is, what are they asking me to do? What have I actually got to do in this? What is the verb that they're actually asking me to do? So let's have a little look through this process here. So firstly, I'm going to highlight or underline the command word from the question. Now, the command word is the verb, what is telling you to do. So in my exam question I had there, I had describe how you would find the centre of mass. So describe is telling me what to do. Describe is my command word or my verb for this question. So what do they actually mean by describe? Well, the exam board use a number of different command words that have all got a very definite definition. So in a question they might ask you to calculate something or compare or evaluate or explain, but today they're asking us to describe. So what describe means is recall some facts or events, give an account of what something looked like, give an account of what happened in an experiment. So can I relate to the describe command word to what I need to do in this question here, talking about an experiment to find centre of mass? Well, yes, I can. So the meaning of the command word today is recall a process or give an account of the experiment that you would do. So they're not asking me to say, you know, why does these things happen in the exam? This happens because of so-and-so. They're just saying, what would you do to find it? They're not saying, why is that where it is? They're just saying, how are you going to find that thing? So I know what I've got to do now. My next step is to think about, how am I going to make my answer flow? Because remember, you're going to get points in this for your answer being coherent and it all hanging together. So what connectives can I use that are appropriate for this answer? I'm thinking about these things in my head in the exam, okay? And I'm thinking about a process. I'm going to talk my way through a step-by-step process. So my connectives are going to be in this thing related to time. So I'm thinking firstly, secondly, thirdly, finally, afterwards, whilst, next, anything that's going to help me talk through a sort of stepwise process. So already I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to start laying this out step by step here. Next thing, make sure you just understand what they're actually asking you about, okay? We've already answered the previous bit of the question, so we know it's related to, in this case, centre of mass, but I know that moments were related to that bit of work when we did it in class as well. So I'm also thinking about, you know, things turning because of the turning effect of a force there as well, okay? What is the question asking you? Can I rewrite it in my own words? Might be worth spending a little bit of time in the exam just thinking about this, you know. Read the question and then don't just immediately try and answer it. Think, what are they actually asking me here? Can I sort of put this into my own words that makes me understand it a bit more? Well, in all fairness, with our question this time, it was fairly straightforward. I don't need to reword it much. So they're just asking me, how do you find the centre of mass of a mobile shape? They've put it in the context of that bird, but that's all they're asking me, basically. Okay, so I'm sort of ready to start thinking about what I'm going to put in my answer now. I know what they're asking me. I know how I'm going to sort of get my ideas together. Now what am I going to do? Well, this is what I need to do now. Think about, how can I actually structure my answer, okay? It's useful just to think about, would it be good to do a little diagram and, you know, I can discuss the diagram. Could I do a flow chart in my thing here just to sort of think about the way you're going to structure your answer? Because although it's a quality of written communication, if they're asking you to compare something, it might be good to do a little table and then talk about the table you've done. It might be good to do bullet points and say these are some of the things that are related to the topic and just bullet point them. So think about the way you're going to lay it out, okay? So I'm thinking it's a method I've got to talk about. I could do it as written text, or I could just put a numbered method. Number 1, do this. Number 2, do that. So already I'm thinking, how am I going to lay my answer out? Obviously, I'm not spending ages in the exam thinking about this, but these thoughts are going through my mind as I'm thinking about what I'm going to write. It's a numbered method, so this is what I'm going to think about doing. First of all, I'm going to describe how to set up my equipment for the experiment. Then, in a bit of detail, I'm going to describe my first step and let them know exactly what I'm going to do. Then I'm going to say, well, just repeat that first step and how many times will I have to do it. And then finally, once I've done all the things I need to do, what am I going to find out? Sort of sum up my answer in a sentence, just so it all seems a bit more coherent. And I've given it a bit of structure, because remember, some of your marks in this are coming from your answer being in a logical sequence as well. Okay, so I know how I'm going to set my answer out. Last thing I'm going to think about is what sort of words have they got on the mark scheme? What are they looking for me to say here? So what scientific keyword should I include in my answer? Well, I'm thinking about these ones here. I'm thinking about mass, concentrated, suspend, suspension, plumb line, symmetry, intersect, all the words that sort of immediately come to mind. And it might be worth in the exam just jotting these down really quickly on the side of your paper. You can always scribble them out again afterwards, but just so you know, that's the sort of thing you're going to be talking about in your 6-mark answer. But remember, you've only got 6 minutes to do this question, so you don't want to spend even as long as I've talked about it for planning this. You just want to think through those steps I just discussed, then get your answer written down. Okay, but once you've done that, you're then ready to start on your question. So describe how I'm going to find the centre of mass of a mobile shape. It's got this number 6 down the bottom, so I'm going for 6 marks here. I'm going to do the answer now, and I'm going to speed up the way I do it just so you don't have to watch it. So here's my finished answer. I'm pretty pleased with that. Thinking about the question, it asked me to describe how I would find the centre of mass of a mobile shape. So describe said to me, recall a process, give an account of an experiment, which I think I've done. If I gave this to someone, I think they could probably follow that through and carry out the experiment themselves. Okay, I'm getting marks here for, is it a nice coherent answer? Have I used some connectives? And thinking about the fact it was a sort of time-based question, have I used some connectives? Yeah, I have. Firstly. Secondly, next, now. So I've used connectors which are appropriate for the question there. Have I used appropriate keywords there? Let's have a look. Have I used some keywords? Well, I've mentioned a retort stand. That's a piece of scientific equipment. A plumb line there. I've said suspend it there. Repeat the procedure from the point of suspension, where the lines intersect. So I've used a lot of appropriate keywords there. And also, I think, it flows in a logical sequence that someone could follow. So I think I've done a pretty good a job of answering the question here. What does the mark scheme say though? Well, the mark scheme says to get the 6 marks for this question, I needed to have given a clear, balanced and detailed description of how I would find the centre of mass of the shape. I think I've done that on there, okay? It says the answer should show almost faultless spelling, punctuation and grammar. Well, I've done that pretty well there. I think, although I'm not the king of punctuation, I haven't made any spelling mistakes and the grammar's okay. It says almost faultless, so one spelling mistake is not going to stop you getting 6 marks here, okay? The mark scheme says it is coherent and it is an organised logical sequence. It contains a range of appropriate and relevant specialist terms used accurately. Well, I think I've done all of that there, okay? The whole thing has not taken me 6 minutes to write the question. It didn't take me 6 minutes to write that out, even though I speeded it up for you. But I would have had a couple of minutes at the start of the question thinking there, what am I going to put? What are my keywords? What are my connectors? What are they actually asking me? And if I did that first and then spent a couple of minutes writing my answer out, I'm going to get 6 marks in my exam, and that's going to do me really well for my grade. Brilliant. Full marks for Pepperell. And of course, although that's a physics question, the stuff we've talked about there is going to be applicable to biology and chemistry as well. And we're going to do a few more of these just to give you even more idea of how to get full marks in the quality of written communication answer. That's it for this episode of Pep Talk. Any problems, don't hesitate to tweet me at Mr. Pepperell or email me and I'll get back to you ASAP. Thanks for stopping by.